Why do you always bake so much, old man? You think these uniforms owe you something? That's what a teenager sneered one Sunday morning as the smell of fresh bread drifted from the old bakery. The man didn't reply, just wiped flour off his hands and kept baking. Because for 12 years he placed a dozen loaves by the window every Sunday. No charge, no name. Then one morning as the sun rose, 5 military trucks pulled up outside. And what happened next? Let's just say the Army never forgets its own. If you believe real service is never forgotten, comment respect below. Joseph Hale, 78, was a retired Army cook who had served 3 tours: Vietnam, Iraq, and finally Afghanistan. After retiring, he opened Liberty Crust, a modest bakery in a small Midwestern town, mostly quiet except on Sunday mornings. Every Sunday without fail, Joseph woke at 3:45 a.m., kneaded by hand, and baked exactly 12 loaves of honey oat bread at 7 a.m. He'd wrap each loaf in brown paper, place a simple note that read, "For those who still serve," and leave them on the side table marked "Free for Service." Young soldiers from the nearby base often swung by, some on runs, some after early patrol, picked up bread and left a quiet nod or thanks. But not everyone appreciated it. One Sunday a teenager mocked him, "Old man baking for free, they're soldiers, not God." Another passerby took a photo and posted it with the caption, "Boomer thinks he's saving the country with carbs." He didn't reply, didn't scold, just returned to the oven and quietly set another tray. Years ago during deployment, Joseph wasn't just a cook. He once ran into gunfire to pull a wounded soldier out of a burning mess tent. His actions never made the news. No medal ceremony, just a quiet debrief. And more baking. Joseph's wife had passed 10 years prior. No kids. Baking was his language of love, of grief, of gratitude. His hands bore the marks of his life. Burned scars from oven accidents, calluses from kneading, small nicks from chef's knives over decades of service. The bakery itself was modest. Faded yellow paint on the exterior. A simple hand-painted sign, windows that needed cleaning but inside warmth, the smell of yeast and honey and hope. For Joseph, the simple act of measuring flour, adding salt, proofing yeast, these were meditative rituals. He didn't speak much to the customers who came for his regular bread and pastries. Monday through Saturday, didn't mention his service, didn't wear his medals or display his photos, just baked and sold and lived quietly. But Sundays were different. On Sundays his back straightened, his movements became more precise. Those who paid attention noticed that he wore a freshly pressed shirt beneath his apron. The ritual had begun when a young soldier had stopped by one Sunday when the bakery was technically closed, looking exhausted, homesick, lost. Joseph had handed him a fresh loaf without a word. "Smells like my mom's kitchen," the soldier had said, eyes welling up. The next Sunday, Joseph baked 2 loaves, then 4, then 12, a perfect dozen, one for each year he'd served. If you believe quiet kindness changes lives, share this story. Someone out there needs to see what true respect looks like. A local council member complains about unsanitary giveaway practices after someone reported that unregulated food was being given to the public. Health inspector visits Joseph's bakery, is cited for minor infractions, labels missing, expired permit renewal. Until compliance is met, they say no more free distribution. Mixed, some rally behind Joseph, others shrug. It's just bread. One woman at the grocery store mutters he should have retired from baking, not just war. Joseph needs dough on his kitchen counter anyway, puts on his old apron. He can't stop a faded unsigned thank you card from 2009. It reads, "You baked when we were too tired to fight. You reminded us why we fight at all." Kandahar, 2006. Joseph spends his nights baking under tarp shelters with makeshift ovens built from bricks and fire pits. Soldiers line up silently at 4 a.m. The only warmth in 40 degrees of desert dawns is coffee and Joseph's bread. Without the bakery, he's forgotten. Bread piles up on the kitchen table. He starts wrapping loaves and giving them to passers-by, but few take them then. One Sunday the smell of bread drifts again, but this time it's not alone. 5 olive drab military trucks roll up and park in front of Joseph's bakery. Soldiers in dress uniforms step out, forming a perfect line outside Tuesday morning. The notice arrived on official letterhead, bold font across the top. Notice of temporary closure. Joseph read it 3 times before the words made sense. Councilman Lucas Trent had filed a formal complaint after his niece developed stomach discomfort hours after consuming unregulated baked goods from Liberty Crust. No proof of connection, just suspicion and bureaucracy. The health inspector, young, apologetic but firm, arrived Thursday. "Just routine, Mr. Hale. Nothing personal," but his clipboard filled quickly. Expired business license renewal, insufficient ingredient labeling, Improper storage of free distribution items. Technically, you need a separate permit for giveaways, he explained, avoiding Joseph's eyes. By Friday afternoon, the yellow tape went up, closed by order of Millerville Health Department. Joseph locked up silently, the keys heavy in his arthritic hands. That evening, his phone rang twice. First, Mary from the diner. This is ridiculous, Joseph. Want me to call my cousin at the newspaper? He declined. No fuss needed. I'll sort it out. Then Todd from the hardware store. Bureaucratic nonsense. Want me to talk to Trent? Again, Joseph refused. Rules are rules. I missed some paperwork, but Sunday morning arrived with a weight of broken tradition. Yeah, he woke anyway. Force of habit. In his kitchen, with smaller bowls in his old home oven, he mixed and kneaded and shaped. Not 12 loaves, just 4. All his home equipment could manage. When dawn broke, he walked to the corner of his street, stood quietly with a small basket of bread. A jogger passed, didn't stop. A woman walking her dog crossed to the other side. By 8 a.m. he'd given away just 1 loaf to elderly Mrs. Patterson, who didn't know about the closure. Didn't realize you were in trouble, Joseph, she said, taking the bread. Shame about the youngsters these days. No respect. He nodded, said nothing. Back home, he stared at the 3 remaining loaves on his counter. Something cracked inside him, not dramatically, not completely, just a hairline fracture in the foundation of purpose. That evening, he pulled out an old wooden box from his closet. Inside, his service photos, dust-covered medals, letters from commanding officers, and at the bottom a stack of handwritten notes. Your bread got me through my darkest day. First time I smiled in weeks was biting into your sourdough. He traced the faded ink with his finger. 1 week passed, then another. The permit paperwork sat half completed on Joseph's table. By the 3rd Sunday, Joseph didn't even bother baking. Just sat in his kitchen chair at 3:45 and were staring at the dark window until the rumble of engines broke the pre-dawn silence. 5 olive drab truck, military precision parking, and soldiers, dozens of them in perfect formation outside his closed bakery. Residents peek out of homes. Phones are raised. What's going on? A high-ranking officer steps forward. Colonel Vaughn, tall, stern, his voice unwavering. Mr. Hale, we've come to return the favor. I was a 19-year-old recruit when I first tasted your bread in Kandahar. It wasn't about the bread, it was a piece of home. When I heard your bakery was shut down, we decided it was time someone remembered you. One by one, soldiers began unloading equipment. A new industrial oven, shelves, fresh permit approvals. A man from the Department of Veteran Affairs steps forward with a reinstated small business veteran. Grant paperwork signed and expedited. Silence, then clapping. Some cry. The same teenager who once mocked him hangs back ashamed. The soldiers place a polished plaque on the bakery's door. Liberty Crust, where service is still served. Joseph, in tears, stands by the oven. He turns and salutes the soldiers. Colonel Vaughn returns a salute. Permission to grab a slice, sir. Joseph heard the commotion from 3 blocks away, threw on clothes, didn't bother with his cap, walked quickly despite his arthritic knee. By the time he reached Main Street, a crowd had already formed. Neighbors in bathrobes, early churchgoers, the newspaper editor with her camera, and soldiers, at least 30 of them, standing at parade rest in perfect formation. The truck's engines still hummed, breaking the Sunday morning quiet. A tall officer stepped forward. As Joseph approached, Silver Eagle, insignia, ramrod posture, the kind of presence that commanded rooms without effort. Joseph Hale, the voice carried across the street. Joseph nodded, suddenly conscious of his rumpled clothes and uncombed hair. Colonel Marcus Vaughn, 87th Infantry Division, the man said, extending his hand. We've been looking for you. Confusion crossed Joseph's face. Kandahar, 2006. Colonel Vaughn continued. I was a private then. First deployment. Recognition flickered in Joseph's eyes. You probably don't remember me, but I remember you. We all do. The colonel gestured behind him where soldiers now stood at attention. I was a 19-year-old recruit when I first tasted your bread in Kandahar. It wasn't just about the bread, it was a piece of home. It was a normalcy in hell. Joseph's eyes misted slightly, but his expression remained composed. When word reached the base that your bakery was shut down, well, we decided it was time someone remembered you. The crowd had grown. Whispers rippled through the onlookers. The colonel nodded to his soldiers who moved with practiced efficiency. From the trucks they began unloading equipment. A commercial-grade oven, stainless steel shelves, bags of premium flour. A woman in a business suit stepped forward from the second truck. Hale, I'm Captain Nora Briggs, Department of Veterans Affairs. We've fast-tracked your veteran business support grant. She handed him an envelope. All paperwork is in order, including your renewed permits. health certifications and a specialty distribution license. Joseph stared at the envelope speechless. From the crowd, Councilman Trent pushed forward, clipboard in hand. Now wait just a minute. The colonel turned his gaze, silencing Trent instantly. Councilman, I believe. His tone remained professional, but undeniably cold. All regulatory requirements have been satisfied. Federal approval has precedence in this matter. Trent retreated wordlessly. As the equipment continued to be unloaded, Colonel Vaughn turned back to Joseph. Mr. Hale in Kandahar, you didn't just feed us, you preserved our humanity. His voice carried so the entire crowd could hear. You woke at 300 every day, used your own rations to supplement what we have, built ovens from nothing. Joseph shook his head. I was just doing my job, Colonel. No, sir. Your job was to prepare 3 meals a day from military supplies. What you did went far beyond duty. The colonel reached into his pocket and withdrew a polished brass plaque. In elegant script it read, Liberty Crust, where service is still served. On behalf of every soldier who found home in your bread, we'd like to give something back. Joseph, emotion finally breaking through, his composure snapped to attention. Hand raised in a perfect salute. Despite the years in arthritis, Colonel Vaughn returned it, then broke into a smile. Permission to grab a slice, sir. Joseph's voice caught, then steady. Bread's always free for those who serve, Colonel. Always has been. The bakery is thriving again. Joseph still wakes early, but now he's got help. 2 young vets recently discharged work the front. A teen who once mocked him now volunteers on weekends. A group of kids paint a mural outside the bakery, a loaf of bread breaking open into a sunrise with dog tags in the center. National news picks up the story. Interviews requested. Joseph declines them all. When asked why he bakes, he simply says, because not everyone comes back, but those who do, they deserve a warm welcome. And every Sunday morning, 12 loaves still appear on the windowsill. Only now there's a line of quiet boots waiting before sunrise. No price tags, no receipts, just a nod and bread warm enough to remember home. By late summer, Liberty Crust had transformed. The faded exterior now gleamed with fresh paint, army green with gold trim. Inside, the new equipment hummed efficiently, allowing greater production than Joseph had ever managed alone. But the most significant change wasn't the building or the equipment, it was the staff. Sergeant Michael Turner, retired 3 tours in Iraq, managed the front counter, his prosthetic hand deftly handling transactions. Corporal Jasmine Wells, former Army mechanic recently discharged, had discovered a talent for pastry. And every weekend, 16-year-old Jason Miller, the same teenager who had once mocked Joseph, swept floors and washed dishes. His first day he'd arrived nervously, apology rehearsed. Joseph had simply handed him an apron. Actions speak louder, he'd said. A reporter from the Chicago Tribune arrived one Tuesday. Mr. Hale, what inspired you to create this memorial in bread? Joseph had shaken his head. Not a memorial, just breakfast. The elementary school painted a mural on the bakery's sidewall. A simple loaf of bread, breaking open, steam rising in the shape of dog tag. When asked by a local child why he begged for soldiers every Sunday, his answer was simple, because not everyone comes back, but those who do, they deserve a warm welcome. And so the ritual continued. Every Sunday morning at precisely 7 a.m., 12 loaves appeared on the windowsill. Only now there was always a line waiting. No price tags, no receipts, just the unspoken understanding. Some debts can never be repaid, but they can be remembered, acknowledged, one loaf at a time. If you believe some heroes never ask for thanks but always deserve one, then subscribe to Steelheart Stories, where quiet legends live on.